Welcome everyone to the LEC post-game lobby after the last day of the regular season. We got there.
Yeah, just about.
Yeah, I'm Sjokz. I'm joined by Medic and by Fnatic's Bwipo in just a second. He is getting set up, but then we'll talk about him about all things playoffs, also our first Worlds participant coming from EU, and just the craziness that has transpired so far. First up, just to close out that last game, the Kia player of the game of Fnatic versus SK was Bwipo. Oh, that's unfortunate. He's not here. That sucks. I wanted to buy some time. It was 42% of the vote. So what do you think, Bwipo? Oh, okay, great.
Yeah, it was great. Yeah, I really enjoyed it. Oh, if I'm cosplaying as Bwipo, I need to talk for like 5 minutes here.
True.
So maybe we'll wait for him to answer that later on. But yeah, good to see him perform well again.
Yeah, and I mean, for Fnatic versus SK, of course, it was kind of was not much on the line in terms of they had both already locked. But I do have to say, once again, Fnatic very convincing, and it does look like they have turned a new leaf since a couple of weeks ago. Yeah,
and I think it kind of echoes the sentiment we heard from Sjokz after the 4th game, which is purely that Fnatic, when they start to ramp up, when the stars start to align for them, are a very scary team. And coming into playoffs, they will be a very scary team for a lot of people to compete against. They have a huge amount of best-of-5 experience. Things seem to be working for them. They seem to have found their groove. And the expectation is that because of that experience, they should be able to challenge Mad Lions and Rogue and G2 coming up towards the finals.
Yes, we do see Bwipo. He's getting ready, just putting that headset on.
It's just the camera shake that's going on as he tries to get into position as well.
Not showing it to the people at home, but can you hear us, Bwipo? Oh, we can't hear you yet. No, we'll let you sort that, but we see you, so that's a good start. You know, give us a little wave. Hey, okay.
Thank you, Bwipo.
Yeah, we'll troubleshoot that, but we'll pull up the standings meanwhile, so you can gather your thoughts
while
about
everything
it.
gets sorted.
So after a great comeback this week, of course, Rogue ended the regular season in 1st, followed by the Mad Lions and G2. Yes.
Hello, Bwipo.
Hello, welcome, Bwipo.
Hello.
Hi. Thank you for joining us. We just jumped into the standings, and well, can I get your general thoughts on kind of the craziness of how the split has gone and how the standings have ended up?
Oh, my general thoughts are thank something we made it. Other than that, it's surprising to see Rogue and Mad Lions still at the top near the end of the split, right? I think most people expected G2 Esports and Fnatic and Rogue and Mad Lions to have shifted there, but ultimately we're top 4 thanks to the championship split points, I believe, from Spring Split.
Yep.
Well, worked out. We're top 4. I think we have 2 lives now. I think we can lose the first best-of-5 and still fight for Worlds. So all in all, you know, we take those.
We take those. I love how you're just guessing. I guess we're there. I guess we have 2 lives. Who knows? All right, Medic, do you want to explain this championship point situation?
Yeah, so championship points determine seeding for playoffs after the regular season has ended. Teams earned points in spring and in summer, as you can see ahead of you. Now, the important things to note are, even though G2 placed 3rd in the regular season in summer, because of the points they earned in spring, they actually get 2nd seed going into playoffs. Fnatic as well, even though they earned, you earned 4th place anyway, but no matter where you had placed in playoffs, as long as you got in, you were always going to get 4th seed going into our playoff format. So you get 2 chances alongside Rogue, Mad Lions, and G2, and then SK and Sjokz will be in the lower side of the bracket. You will see Origin had 30 points from spring, but because they did not place top 6, they did not make it into playoffs, and they won't be competing for Worlds.
All right, which is also devastating, of course. I also want to get your take before we move on, Bwipo, on Schalke.
Yeah.
The most unlikeliest of scenarios. What do you have to say about their miracle run?
Well, they kind of dismantled us 2-0 over the split, so obviously it would be rude not to sing their praises from our side. With that in mind, I think they found what fit. And I think that's kind of the story of the split for me, at least, is that every single team that has the most success right now are teams that have found what fit. Rogue and Mad Lions, they found what fit very early on in the split, and they've managed to ride it through until the end. Schalke, they mixed and matched players for the first few weeks up until week 5, where all of a sudden it fit. And then from that point onwards, they managed to find a recipe and stick to it.
I'd like to parlay that into kind of some thoughts about Fnatic. I heard you say already, well, we made it, we take those. We also talked to Reckless yesterday who said, well, we had trouble finding our identity. I know you gave an interview, talked about side grading and not really finding the right thing. So would you say those Schalke issues or the way they developed seem similar to yours?
Perhaps. I think that most teams have the same idea, right? It's you're fighting through like what goes well, what goes right, and it's all a matter of finding, okay, this is our recipe for success and expanding from there, right? Like Schalke, I feel like with Gilius coming in, I feel like having a more stable approach to the game was what they needed. Like feeling more comfortable and having a standard game of play seemed to be very successful for players like, especially Abadage, right? He's been showing up big time, and I think that comes because he doesn't have to worry so much about the state of the game and rather just play out the way he wants to play the game out, and that way he can shine through his individual skill. And I think that was something he needed, and Gilius managed to provide that from him from the jungle.
Can I just expand on that idea of finding your own style? Because previously we've talked to you about how Mithy gives you a lot more options when it comes to draft. It's kind of more of a player-led draft, and Youngbuck was more didactic. It was like, this is what we want you to play, this is what we want you to do. Do you think, and this is obviously going to be mostly hypothetical, but do you think having someone like Youngbuck who tells you what you will play and makes you play a certain style can actually help teams as opposed to them trying to find their own style alongside their coach or their manager?
Well, given Excel's results and the fact that this was the closest they got to getting playoffs ever since being in the LEC, I would say yes, of course. Especially players like Kryze, right? I'm sure it helps new up-and-coming top laners, just like it did for me when I came into the league and Youngbuck was my coach. Having him just point at, this is what everyone plays, I like this, that's what you're playing. Whereas if you're a more experienced player and you know yourself a little bit better and you've gained some confidence as a player, I think it can help yourself more to remind your teammates of like, I'm really good at these specific picks, and then point them into the other direction and be like, this is my input. Getting your teammates to understand your input and value that gives you an extra level of confidence, which is something that I've successfully managed to do sometimes and sometimes not.
Confidence is a fickle thing, right? And yesterday when we were talking to, or Laura was talking to Reckless as well, and he was saying about losing confidence, and that might seem puzzling to someone who's sitting at home and thinking, well, I mean, these guys have been on the biggest stage in the world. They've played for so long. How can they still get affected? How would you say 2020 Bwipo deals with confidence issue, kind of the spans of emotions with losses and wins compared to a couple of years ago?
Well, if you're asking 2020, I'm going to include Spring Split for that, because I think that's where my confidence hit an all-time high, and to the point of overconfidence, and I regret that very deeply. I think that having the whole the whole thing of me being considered MVP of Spring Split, I think it got to my head. And I reached a point where I was very disappointed that I wasn't. And I think that should never happen. I think I should always be confident in my own play and satisfied with the results I bring. And if I win anything on the side, that's just nice. Like, it's great, you know, that happened. But it should never take over a player. Your confidence shouldn't dictate how you feel. It should just be what you wear. I'm not sure how to really put it into words that make sense, but it's something like you're supposed to wear your confidence. It's supposed to be the aura that you have around you, right? This is what makes you. It shouldn't be based on what's happening around me. My confidence is changing.
Okay.
And I think that that's something that went wrong for me. And it's something that, for example, today, why after having some very bad games in the LEC, I can still, you know, the next day pick a mill and do something crazy. You know, I can just go around and gank everybody. And I think that that's the most important thing about 2020 Bwipo, for me at least, is that try to wear the confidence. Don't play around it. Like, just, it's there. I want to just do what I'm good at, and I want to stick to that.
And realizing that you can still make mistakes and not thinking, hey, who is going to beat me? How has that helped you? Because that's like new knowledge you have. That's kind of a level up in life, let's say. How has that helped you deal with kind of, you know, the issues that got thrown your way in the team and the team just not finding their identity this split?
Well, it's hard to say, because I think ultimately confidence, like our team not finding our identity really comes, I think, from the fact that players haven't really had the confidence to step up and decide on what to do, right? I can imagine teams like Mad Lions and all the teams that are doing well at the top, like even G2 with Caps coming up big time is a great example, right? Like Caps just came in with the confidence of like, guys, let's just play around me. I'm going to carry the team to the playoffs, because it did look very, very, very scary for G2 at some point, much like us. But I think that like having one person, like, how do I put it? Exude confidence. I'm looking for the word there, but the point I'm trying to make is having someone just like really shine confidence and having everyone play around them is, I think, something that every team really needs. And right now the problem is that in Fnatic we have our moments, you know, like sometimes it's me, sometimes it's Reckless, sometimes it's Selfmade, sometimes it's Hilly, sometimes it's Nemesis. It's not one guy always reliable, and then you build from there. Because our confidence like wanes based on what's going on in the games. Like sometimes we have a bad performance on stage and we get disappointed, and there's a lot of factors that make our confidence levels like fluctuate too much.
I understand that, and I think, as you say, like for everyone it wanes and it changes at different times, but to me as a team you have to find a way to like bridge that gap, right? So if everyone is struggling with confidence, do you guys have mechanisms where you can say, okay, we all know we're struggling, this is how we deliberately overcome that?
Yeah, I mean, there's obviously recognizing what you're good at, right? That's the first thing that you need to do to regain confidence as a player. It's you go back to, all right, what am I good at? And then you ask the question, like, all right, well, Selfmade, he came into the LEC, he made big plays on Sejuani. He was there to like get things going in the early game. So let's try and draft champions that get us going in the early game. You know, let's have Selfmade get us activated. Hilly on the Pike. Let's try the Pike. It worked the first few games. Like the first game we tried it, and then not so much after, right? But again, we did try to go back to, all right, what are we really good at? And we didn't try to expand too much before we had secured like this is what we're good at.
Okay. I also gathered that it's clicked now, and you know, Reckless also said that much. We needed that kind of one win, that big win, or that click internally for us to be off to a good foot. And I hope that keeps going then for playoffs, because I want to talk a bit about those playoffs and about the bracket, because Rogue have selected to face you guys, Fnatic, in the upper bracket, which means that G2 will take on the Mad Lions and Schalke will take on SK. Wow. Okay, that's a spicy draft or a spicy playoff bracket, let's say. First off, reactions to Rogue picking you.
Natural. I think Mad Lions have looked like a stronger team across the split, and I feel like the wins that we got were mostly, like, honestly, you could say from the enemy team throwing rather than us having an exceptionally well game. So again, Rogue is a very confident team when it comes to playing mid and late game, so I think it makes sense for them to pick that. And then I feel like we've lost a bit of our threat as a team, so it makes sense that they're going to pick us first. It's also you don't really have much to pick from, right? Or what were the options for them? They couldn't pick Schalke or SK, right? So it's like G2 or Fnatic, or is G2 and Mad?
No, it's Mad and Fnatic. Right. Mad and Fnatic.
Second place, fourth place. Like, let's do the math. You know, it's like it's. I feel like it's a situation where some silver analysis can do you some real good. You know, you're just like, you know what, second place, fourth place. Fourth place.
Silver analysis, I love it. But it's also a tricky one. I mean, if you think about it a bit, because there's so many variables, right? There's, all right, well, if the Fnatic from weeks 3 to 7, great, yeah, ship those in. But, you know, the Fnatic, sorry, no offense, but the Fnatic who we know how good they can play, and the one we've even seen just now this week, and kind of the looming ceiling of Fnatic. And a Mad that, yes, you just beat yesterday, but you know that they can also show up in those best of fives. That's a tricky one.
I think the big debate is, will Mad prepare something that surprises you? Because I think with Fnatic, even in a best of 5, you're a very good team, and like in best of 5s, you're very strong, but you tend to stick to Fnatic styles. Like you have this specific play style that you tend to play. Whereas Mad Lions have shown us over the course of this split, with preparation, they can pick out all of these cool, unique, different things. You know, the Senna Wukongs, the Pantheon bot lanes. And that is what I would be worried about if I'm Rogue. I'd be worried about a curveball that might just throw us off in one best of 5.
That's a good point. I have a follow-up, but I just want to check if you agree with that, if you think that, you know, you guys have like one style in best of 5.
I mean, I think I've been known for busting out some strange things in best of 5. I believe. Karzi still remembers Malphite, I'm sure, and Kansama. It was best of 1, but I think he remembers Zach just fine. Wonder those two in a different sense, but let's not talk about that one.
Yeah, Mad tend to win with their unique picks.
Right. I played Rengar at Worlds as well, so it's like to say that we don't like. I try to pick champions that are still unique to Fnatic style. I do try to fit the bill, but the way how, I think we still mix it up just fine.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, what it looks like to me is that things that are both a side effect of the roster changes in Fnatic, but also just the way the meta has behaved. It seems like the level to which you can expect surprises from Fnatic and Flex and whatnot has eroded a little bit compared to past years. It's something that I last year or years before would always immediately identify with Fnatic, and now that's a bit less. Would you agree it's kind of part meta, part roster changes, and is it something that you think you guys will work on coming into these best of fives?
I mean, it's something that we're going to hope fixes itself, right? Like, it's a matter of like just coming in, we look strong on our first best of five, we just play our meta, because that's the thing, right? Fnatic, like, we've always been our own team, and everyone's always looked at us as our own team. I think that's one of the reasons why we've had like that idea of being a stronger team, because we would do our thing. The thing is, I feel like actually Mad Lions and Rogue have taken that over.
Yeah.
They are the teams, you know, like when you think late game, mid to late, sorry Origin, you're thinking Rogue now. Much like when you were thinking, I don't know what's going to happen, you were thinking Fnatic, whereas I don't know what's going to happen is much more a Mad Lions thing right now.
That's a good read, and I think that's also a consensus. I want to pick your brain on the other matchups. Then we have G2 versus Mad, which the story everyone knows. Mad, who came out with that huge upset and showed then that they had staying power throughout summer. What are your thoughts about that matchup?
I mean, it would be very interesting to see, especially given how much of G2 have doubled up on caps. I think that's like the biggest point of interest there, because I'm not 100% sure of how much they doubled up on caps in terms of early game planning and gameplay, but when it comes to later stages of the game, like, it's pretty much all caps most of the games that I've been watching, which is the majority of the last end of the split, right? And, well, when you're matching against caps, so far in LEC history, that's usually been pretty bad for the enemy mid laner. So with that in mind, it'll be interesting to see how Mad Lions can deal with a cap-centered G2.
There has actually been a really big shift in playstyle for G2, where in the first half of the split, Caps tended to leave lane in the early game and go towards his other lanes. And then in this second half of the last 4 or 5 games, it's been all about people coming to Caps' lane and getting him the advantage. So I totally agree with you there, Bwipo. The numbers back you up as well. And I've actually started to see Mad Lions kind of fall off a little bit in the last couple of days. Like, they're still performing well, but they're not showing us the explosiveness they had in the past. Do you think this is going to continue going into playoffs?
It'll be hard to tell, of course. Like, ultimately, like, we're hoping for a really good series, right? Like, I want to see Mad Lions challenge G2 all the way till the end, because I enjoy the sport just as much as anybody else. So I like watching like a nice, intense game. Nice to see G2 obviously maybe show some cards in the case that we do end up winning and we meet again. Always look forward to that. But other than that, it would be interesting to see how Mad Lions can deal with caps, really, because for me, like, and pretty much everyone in the LEC, I think the past 2 years, maybe 3, 3 years actually, have been caps, right?
Yep.
Story of European playoffs for the past 3 years has been caps. So now I think you have to ask yourself is, how can we handle caps, right? From Mad Lions' perspective, if we play against G2, I think at this point that much respect is something you can give to caps. And I think one of the reasons why in summer we were able to contest G2 much better last year's summer than in spring this year was because we had a much better plan and idea of how to attack and play around caps.
Yeah, I love that you put the respect to your ex-teammate there, who's just been fantastic for G2. Yeah, for Matt, it's just also, it's so weird because you want to say, well, they had that upset last time, but now it's so different because now they can't play the underdog card anymore. And there's a lot of pressure on their shoulders. So we will see. About this matchup specifically, the last thing I want to ask you is, we talked to Jankos briefly before your game, and we just asked him, hey, what do you think about the playoffs and this and that? And you heard this also yesterday from Perks. G2 has their confidence back with capital C. We're going to win the split, probably going to be a Fnatic G2 final. All of that was back there. Do you have similar thoughts about how playoffs will go, or are you a bit more reserved as pertaining to both Fnatic and G2?
I think it will take us a best of 5 win before we can put the capital C back on, if you will. And with that in mind, once we win in a best of 5, I know that I'll be tempering myself a little bit more, making sure that I keep my confidence in check and I wear it more than I speak it. With that in mind, G2 Fnatic Finals is always something I look forward to. And if I have to, I'll take a best of 5 in general, right? But maybe another set of 2 best of 5s, that would be, well, ideal, I think. I would like that.
Weird. Oh. So weird. We're always like, oh, the changing of the guard, it's happening. And then you arrive at those playoffs and those two teams are back there, looming over everyone. Crazy stuff. So the LEC will be going on a 1-week break. So next week, no LEC. And then the playoffs will start. And the one match we haven't talked about is it starts on the Friday, the 21st, rather, of August at 6 p.m. CEST. Schalke versus SK. Quick prediction, you both. Medication.
I think Schalke have to take it if they continue the current run of form. They just look a much more well-balanced and polished team than SK to me.
Bwipo?
I would have to say Schalke is going to take it, but with a quick prediction, I will say Schalke is going to take it. If I actually think about it, and maybe I can formulate a better response, but my first instinct is Schalke will take it.
Mm-hmm. There's also, there's a lot of momentum talk as well, of course. And there's like, well, now they just kept it going. But now a week break, are they going to get better or are they going to get worse? Who knows? It's really exciting. On final thing, we also need to talk about what was a result of the results today, is Rogue is going to Worlds.
Super exciting.
Mad was so close. Like yesterday they had a chance. And today then, of course, they gave it away. And Rogue absolutely capitalized on that. How do you think Rogue could do at Worlds, Bwipo?
It'll be interesting to see. I think one huge difference between playing at Worlds compared to the LEC is, of course, the atmosphere, right? Like, just from a day-to-day basis, like, you're surrounded by so many world-class players all the time where you're just like, it's a real experience for any player, and I think that that's something that's going to be very interesting to see, like, the newer teams from the LEC deal with, right? Like, how do you deal with such huge names and teams, right? Like, players like FLICKR walking around, players with so many achievements, really. Contesting those is always different from playing your day-to-day game in the LEC, at least for me. So I would say Rogue can pull out wins and definitely surprise at Worlds, but it's going to take a lot of confidence, and they're going to have to stick to their own shell, I feel like. Just come in as the team that you want to be and stick to it. Don't try to be, the best team at Worlds. Don't try to think too much about, if we want to win Worlds, we're going to have to do something crazy or something. Just stick to your own thing, play your own theme, and get really, really good at it.
And I will say, it's super exciting to see new European players going to Worlds. You know, having Inspired and Larsen and Finn all going to their first Worlds is just really cool. Of course, Vander and Hans Sommer have been before, but we always talk about new blood going to Worlds. Vitality did it. It's so great to see, and I can't wait to see what Rogue do.
Yeah, it's going to be amazing. I just wanted to, just something that popped into my head is something that Indiana mentioned today is we are not sure. In the past, I think we had an idea of, okay, we feel like the level of our league is at a good pace, and we might have a good shot at Worlds, not just like at the World Championship, but do good at Worlds. But the lack of MSI was tricky in that regard, because usually you have that North Star, is how Verius put it, this great team that's picking up all these things from these international teams and then bringing that back to foster at home. Do you think that lack of MSI in general and that kind of injection of all the other teams and the strategies, has that made the LEC level drop a little bit?
Potentially. I think that the biggest concern that I would have for LEC at Worlds is, for example, champions like Ashe and Zoe doing very poorly in the LEC compared to this being the staple meta picks over in Asia especially, right? And you have to wonder, is it us? Are we just bad at them? Or... like the question is are we going to get schooled by Ashe Zoe meta, or like are their meta going to school ours, or are we going to school them, right? And that's usually like the thing when you have different metas coming into Worlds, where if you have the right meta, you're in a huge advantage because they have to pick up your pace. But there's the but.
But
if our meta is wrong and the Zoe, Ashes, Gallios, and they all go crazy and they LPL runs us over, we're gonna have to do some catching
I
up.
don't want to think
Where
about
week
it
2
either.
comebacks come back, you know? We've
Yeah.
seen Fnatic do it in the
Well,
past, 0-4 to
true.
4-4. You do it again.
Also,
It's fine.
you know it. It's Galio, it's Zoe, it's Ash. Just also practice those.
Get good at
What's the
Ash.
problem?
Change.
It's really not hard.
Right.
Just kidding. Appreciate the insight. We'll see, of course, fingers crossed for Europe at Worlds. We do also have a winner in the Kia Player of the Game leaderboard. Congratulations to Caps. 8 wins in that one. Crown Shot trailing, then Larson, Patrick, and Gilius sneaking in there with 5 wins. I think honorable mention to Abadaga as well for the late game or the late season surge for Schalke. But yeah, Bwipo already sang his praises. Medic, I think you can only.
I mean, Katz is a great player, and it's actually very odd to see a G2 player near the top of this leaderboard because usually they split the MVPs
Yes.
between them. So I think this just shows how much Caps has contributed to G2's wins this split. He has been the single guiding light for this team. He has been the single player that has been consistent, which is something we really couldn't say about Caps in the past.
That's a good point. I want to parlay this into a very short MVP discussion. Bwipo, give me 3 names and a little bit of a reasoning why you think they should be considered MVP.
Well, Caps kept the dream alive. I think that's fair to say. He's also got MVP. He's top of the leaderboard, so that makes sense. I think Gilius gets to show up. He was a part of the resurgence. Obviously, together with Abadage, I think that they found what clicked for them, and I think Gilius was a big part of that, at least from what I can tell on social media. And then lastly, it's kind of difficult to say, right? Because you want to give it to one of the Mad Lions players. You know, Kaiser won the mid split, or the halfway through MVP, whatever thing.
It was made
and
up.
then you have Humanoid, and still works. You have Humanoid and Shadow, like having those pop-off games left and right, and then that's kind of died down. So the question is, how much do you value that early, like the early split performance compared to the later split performance, right? Because Caps and Gilius very much were more about making it to playoffs, right? That's kind of the storyline you're going with if you want to praise them as MVPs for the split. Whereas Shadow and Humanoid were all about setting up, coming out with a bang, right? Like they showed up big time. They basically showed up and said, we're here to win. And then a last name, an honorable mention would definitely still be Larson, right? Because he's been the guy they relied on. Hansama had his fair share of good games. You know, he's had more than one game with more than 10 kills on Aphelios, for example. But ultimately, Larson was the person they played around the most, and it brought them success as well. So I think those would be the up and runners for MVP, in my opinion.
Yeah, and
We'll
I
see
think
where it goes.
Bwipo's giving you a really good answer. He's listed off a lot of good names, but the most valuable player definition is the player that most impacted the league this split, and it has to be Gilius. In terms of an entertainment broadcast, in terms of bringing Schalke...
Entertainment broadcast.
Entertainment, but who most impacted your viewing of the LEC this split?
But that's not the criteria.
No, the definition is who had the most impact on the LEC this split in summer.
That's the
That is
actual
the definition of most valuable player. Statistically, we have the best team. You know, you've got
Means
the
for
top
the
teams.
win.
Gilius, he took Schalke from 1-10 to 8-10. He made the miracle run alive. Vedius did his cool God Gilius segments. Anyone else is trolling?
I mean, all right, I don't know if actually don't know if you're trolling
No,
right
that's
now.
the actual definition.
It's, okay, well, even if that's the definition, I think regardless of keep like all the movies
Yeah,
and
you
all
can
that.
vote for a lot of people.
But I do
voting
like
for Gilius.
I do like the idea of kind of like, you know, there aren't often many people you can point to because usually there's multiple MVPs on the same team and it's a team that's just crushing it or whatever. But for me, both for Caps and Gilius, it was such a clear. These people were so instrumental in everything, and I'm even thinking about Abadaga, for instance, and that who turned into this incredible monster in the mid lane. Finally, no mention for Fnatic players, Bwipo, and also not in like what I've heard from analysts and stuff. Is that concerning?
If there's anyone from Fnatic that deserves it, it would have to be Reckless. I think he played a really solid split. Like he's been a rock for the team. Honestly, I think Selfmade comes in at the second. If you're gonna ask me who gets the second one there, but ultimately, I think those two have been the most consistent over the course of the split. But again, most consistent does not equal getting wins, and that's something we've not been doing very well. So hard to get MVP for one of our players.
True, but you can begin right now, Bwipo, so that's good. So, would you mind taking a selfie with us?
Absolutely. How would I do that?
I've never had one of these. I'm super excited.
Sadly, you don't have your cats nearby. That would make an amazing
I think my
selfie.
microphone
I'm in
just
the
unplugged.
office, but
Fine.
maybe next time.
Maybe next time. All right.
Whereabouts am I allowed to stand? Here?
Close to me, and then we'll do this like this, and then, yeah. Awesome. Thank you so much, Bwipo. Thanks so much for talking to us. Great talk.
Thank you very much.
And that's going to be all from us here. Wonderful as always. In the LEC, but across the Atlantic, the LCS is well underway with Evil Geniuses versus 100 Thieves. One more thing, here from the LEC, it's not been an easy split. Behind the scenes, you know the drill. But we are so happy that we were able to give you entertainment every single week. And a big shout out to all the production crew, without who we are nothing. We are taking a quick break next week, but fear not, we will be back for playoffs and you don't even know what's coming. Good night.
Good night. Gilead's for MVP. He's the best.
Yay! Welcome everyone to the opening week of the LEC. Welcome back everybody. Welcome to the LEC
Studio. Week 3 has arrived.
Welcome back everyone.
Welcome to Berlin, Germany in week 4.
Welcome back everyone.
Week 6 of the LEC summer season.
I'm Christy Frierson.
Oh my goodness, it's time.
And the last day of the regular season. 8 weeks of craziness have led us here.
Fine, we go.
So much untapped power.
Leave nothing behind.
I'm on the case.
Now it's Melit's on the back line.
Okay, Lavrov will find the dredge line there.
That's
on
one.
to Dan. There's already men taken out. Melita's still waiting in the wings. Gonna dash over looking for Denny, but that's not
He's
the
dead.
wanted. Fabivin blows him up. He's on the verge of picking up
With
the
the fight.
win. The soul is
It's
in it.
Gileas again.
Gileas does not lose those. Mad Lions are inside the pit. They're chasing. They've lost one. They're stuck. They're done. There's no ways. This is the game for Sjokz. They've won the fight. They're going to get the ace. They're not going to lose a single person. And they've got enough time to push down the base.
You have to make a decision, Origin. You have to do something.
Afari, dunk, follow-up, immediate Zonias, but he's going to get stunned immediately as he comes out now. Decent follow-up damage. Larson going to be in trouble. Finn getting played away. This is going to be big. They're taking it down, but now it's Trey. The Elder Dragon's gone in the meantime, and now Finn is going to shred through everybody. Rogue, ladies and gentlemen, will be the first team to qualify for Worlds 2020. The play comes in as well just to make sure
God,
that Troy
here,
can't
Mickey.
do anything else. Perfect peel comes in from Mickey. Patrick gets taken out. The exhaust on the Jax, but it's too little too late. Wonder's still alive for now. Hextech Ultimatum comes in, but cries. He can't get anything done. Nobody's gonna drop. That's 3 for G2 in exchange for nothing.
We are the best team in the league, and it will be a final between us and G2, and yeah, the better team will win.
Fighting for a potential setup for Soul here.
Self-made coming in. Soul will go down. Trick's gonna grab that one when they're flashing forward, finding Reckless, but there's not really a lot of follow-up there. Trick now onto the backside, but Nemesis untouched. Keep your eyes on the Karma. What can he do? Trying to shut down the team. They're grouping up. They're getting absolutely murdered here. There is nothing you can do against this AP Kog'Maw.